I realized I was being erased before anyone officially said the words. That was the strange part. People think betrayal arrives like a thunderstorm with alarms and screaming, but sometimes it slips into your office, wearing a fake smile and carrying paperwork. Mine came in the form of Cheryl from HR standing at my doorway with a nervous expression and a stack of documents pressed against her chest like a shield. She gave me a tight smile and said I had forgotten to initial the updated NDA. I almost laughed because I never forgot paperwork. In 12 years at Corbridge Systems, forgetting things was a luxury I could not afford. I was the person who caught invisible problems before they exploded into lawsuits. While executives made speeches about innovation and culture, I sat in quiet corners building the infrastructure that kept the company from collapsing under its own bad decisions. Still, I signed the paper, handed it back, and returned to my monitors without another thought. At least that is what I told myself at the time. The office buzzed around me with the usual startup chaos. Project managers strutted through the halls talking about synergy like they had invented language itself. Developers argued loudly about frameworks nobody would use 6 months later. Some intern near the break room kept replaying the same Kendrick Lamar lyric over and over until I thought I might lose my mind. Through all of it, I stayed focused on the Macrovia acquisition. $300 million. That number had become almost mythical inside the company. Every town hall meeting treated the merger like salvation descending from heaven, even though most of the people celebrating it could not explain how any of it actually worked. I could explain it because I built most of it. My name was Evelyn Carter, and buried deep inside the federal compliance records tied to the acquisition was a role nobody else at Corbridge fully understood. I was the certified third-party liaison overseeing integration compliance between Corbridge and Macrovia. It sounded boring, which was probably why executives ignored it. But that certification connected every approval process, every international data transfer, every legal sign-off, and every security verification involved in the deal. The training alone took 6 months and included psychological evaluations, federal oversight interviews, and more paperwork than most people saw in their entire careers. Nobody wanted the responsibility except me. Not because I loved the power, honestly, I liked being invisible. Invisible people hear everything. Invisible people survive corporate wars because nobody notices they are carrying the oxygen tanks. While louder employees fought over promotions and titles, I quietly became essential. That was the mistake Corbridge made. They confused silence with weakness. By the time the merger entered its final 72 hours, I had already noticed subtle shifts in the building. Conversations stopped when I entered elevators. Meetings happened without invitations appearing on my calendar. Executives suddenly avoided eye contact. Years in compliance work teach you how to recognize danger before it becomes official. The company had started treating me like a problem instead of an asset. Then Carson Tate arrived. He became the new coup on a Wednesday morning, surrounded by applause and fake excitement. Mid-40s, perfect haircut, expensive suit, blinding white smile. The kind of executive who used words like disruption and scalability every third sentence because he thought confidence mattered more than competence. During his introduction speech, he spent 40 straight minutes talking about modernization and eliminating outdated systems. Every time he said legacy infrastructure, his eyes drifted toward my side of the office. I understood the message immediately. People around me clapped like a celebrity had walked into the building. I stayed seated at my desk fixing a broken data bridge that had started failing overnight. Nobody noticed except me because nobody else even knew the bridge existed. That was always the story at Corbridge. My work only became visible when it stopped functioning. 3 hours later, Cheryl returned to my office. Except this time she was not alone. 2 HR representatives stood behind her. One held a clipboard. The other had the dead expression of someone who spent every day firing strangers for a living. Cheryl would not meet my eyes when she asked if we could speak privately. I already knew what was happening before we reached the conference room. The termination packet waited on the table inside a plain manila envelope. No Carson, no executive leadership, just paperwork and rehearsed sympathy. The woman with the clipboard explained that my position no longer aligned with the company's strategic vision. I remember staring at the sentence, trying to understand how 12 years of keeping their infrastructure alive could suddenly become misaligned. I had worked through holidays, funerals, birthdays, and surgeries. I once spent Christmas Eve sleeping under my desk during a migration failure, because the executive team wanted the servers operational before morning. Now they were treating me like expired inventory. Then I saw something that made the anger turn cold. Near the front reception desk sat a printed photograph of my face taped beside the visitor log. Written across it in thick red marker were 5 words. Do not allow re-entry. Not Evelyn, not former employee, not security concern. Just a warning label like I was radioactive. That hurt more than the firing itself. I packed my desk quietly while the office pretended not to watch. My assistant Ryan looked devastated. He mouthed an apology from across the floor. But there was nothing he could do. Nobody steps between HR and a corporate execution, not if they want to survive. I handed over my badge without creating a scene. No speech, no threats, no dramatic promises about revenge. I simply walked out carrying a cardboard box filled with pieces of a life the company had decided no longer mattered. Then I sat inside my car, unlocked my phone, opened the encrypted clearance vault tied to the Macrovia merger, and deleted a single authentication certificate. Not a password, not a document, a federal compliance key connected to my personal liaison credentials. Without that certificate, the merger handshake protocol could not verify legal authorization for final execution. Without verification, the acquisition could not close. They had fired the only person capable of completing the process. I drove home calmly because panic would have implied uncertainty. There was no uncertainty. I understood exactly what would happen next. The moment Macrovia attempted final validation, the entire deal would freeze solid. At home, I opened the fireproof contingency box hidden inside my hallway closet. Most people think preparation means paranoia until the disaster arrives. I had assembled that file 2 years earlier after sitting through enough executive meetings to understand how companies sacrifice employees when convenient. Inside the folder sat every compliance document tied to the merger. Every page carried my certification. Every approval chain connected back to my credentials. Then I found Clause 9C. Termination of designated third-party liaison without certified replacement voids compliance standing and suspends acquisition authorization pending federal recertification. In simple language, Corbridge had just destroyed its own merger. I sat there reading the clause again and again while silence filled the house around me. The executives never notice because none of them actually read the compliance protocols. They delegated the responsibility downward and assumed people like me would quietly keep everything functional forever. That assumption cost them $300 million. The next morning I called Macrovia Compliance directly. Greg Harrison answered, sounding cheerful and relaxed. He expected my final approval submission within the week. Instead, I informed him that Corbridge had terminated me effective immediately. The silence afterward felt enormous. He asked if I was joking. I explained that my credentials had been revoked internally and my employment status officially ended. Within seconds, I could hear panic entering his voice as he searched through documentation on his end. My name was embedded everywhere: international approvals, security chains, banking authorizations, regulatory oversight logs. They could not simply swap another employee into the role overnight. Greg finally whispered something that almost sounded like fear. You were the bridge. Exactly, I told him before hanging up. I contacted my attorney immediately afterward. Daniel did not waste time asking emotional questions. By page 3 of my termination documents, he already understood the magnitude of what Corbridge had done. Within hours, he drafted formal legal notification confirming that I no longer represented the company in any compliance capacity tied to the acquisition. The effect was immediate. Macrovia halted the merger. Escrow transfers froze. Final approvals suspended. Automated authentication attempts started failing because the system could no longer verify my clearance key. Somewhere inside Corbridge headquarters, alarms were beginning to ring. I texted Ryan only once. You may want to review Clause 9C. 3 minutes later, he responded asking what Clause 9C even was because executives across the company were suddenly panicking. I never answered, let them discover the truth themselves. By Friday morning, the entire building had descended into chaos. Macrovia representatives refused to attend the scheduled signing meeting. Carson reportedly stood in front of the executive conference room insisting the issue was merely a temporary credentials problem. Meanwhile, legal teams were tearing through documentation trying to understand why the acquisition had suddenly entered suspension status. Then somebody leaked the clause internally. By noon, the phrase termination of designated liaison without replacement had spread through company chat channels like wildfire. The general counsel started screaming at HR. Finance blamed compliance. Compliance blamed executive leadership. Executive leadership blamed technology teams. Nobody wanted responsibility because responsibility now carried a price tag large enough to crater the company valuation. That night the CFO called me 3 times. The first voicemail sounded confident. He referred to the situation as a minor hiccup and suggested we discuss solutions professionally. The second voicemail sounded strained. The third sounded terrified. He begged me to call him back because Macrovia refused every proposed workaround. According to him, their legal department kept repeating the same phrase. Material personnel discrepancy. I deleted all 3 messages. This was never about revenge. Revenge is emotional. This was structural collapse caused by executive arrogance. Remove the keystone from an arch and gravity handles the rest. I placed it on the shelf beside my new business licenses and returned to work inside my home office. The room smelled like pine wood and fresh coffee instead of recycled air and corporate desperation. Sunlight spilled across my desk while client notifications appeared one after another on my monitors. No Slack messages, no executives interrupting me with buzzwords, no meetings pretending incompetence was innovation, just silence, clarity, and control. A final email arrived shortly before sunset from a former Corebridge board member. Subject line: respectfully requesting your terms. I leaned back in my chair, wrapped both hands around a warm mug of coffee, and smiled slowly while evening light filled the room around me. For 12 years I had spent my life making other people powerful while pretending my own role was insignificant. Not anymore. They thought they fired a quiet middle-aged compliance manager. What they actually did was cut the only cable holding the entire structure above water, and by the time they realized it, I was already gone.